Right, so I'm going to do a little bit of watercolours today, which I think I said I was going to do. Is that right? Yeah. So I think last week was the last of the Oscar bit. So I think this week and maybe next week I'll do watercolours, or I might do one other medium with it next week as well. And then come March, I'm going to do like a kind of very basic watercolours 4 weeks for anybody who's interested in watercolours. But if you want to keep going with oils or anything else, that's absolutely fine. I just thought I'd pop that in for anybody who's interested in watercolours. Actually, also I've got to start my new class today, so we can leave all the tables out. Okay. So these were the demos I did earlier in the week for the Tuesday class. This one I just went straight in with paint, and this one I did a little bit of pencil work to start with. So you can take your pick whether you prefer to have some structure with pencil first, or whether you prefer to go straight into paint. If you were going to use pencil, and I'll use the same image, and again it was the same with this one. That one I penciled, and I was starting to just go with the paint there. I use this image. If you're using pencil, I wouldn't necessarily try and draw absolutely everything you can see there. So I'm thinking I'll just use this tree. So it might be that you just pop a few lines in for the overall shape of the tree canopy, and then it gets a little bit lost over here. We've got this bit here, and then comes in a bit, and then there's another sort of shape coming in and out here. So it doesn't always have to be very, very tight, precise drawing, but just something that will give you a bit of a guide. And I find sometimes if I do this, it still means that I can do a little bit of the drawing with the paint, which I always quite like to do, and I think sometimes create a livelier look. And then you might want to just pop some of the main tree trunks in. So we've got this slightly curved one here, and then we've got another curved one here. For the moment, I'll just do that as a line, but you could draw both sides of the trunk if you wanted to, like that. Put another straighter one. I think with some subjects, like the architectural subjects, you probably would want to make a precise drawing, but something like a tree, I think is fairly forgiving. So start with that, and then the watercolours I've got this palette here. It's all tube paint, so it's all nice and fluid, hopefully. Some of it may have dried up a little bit, but I try and keep it fairly fluid. So mix up. You normally would paint the sky, but this is just going to be like a tree sketch, tree study. And I think it's actually quite an idea just to make little studies. I'll do this quite big, but just lots of little studies is quite a nice idea. So with watercolour, it's going to go light to dark. Let's get a bit of this yellow out. So this is it's called cadmium yellow, but it's quite a transparent yellow, this one, so it's not actual cadmium. It's the Cockman version of cadmium yellow. And I'm going to work with a fairly big brush. See if that works. It might be too big, I might go slightly smaller. So working light to dark. And what I'm really looking for is broad areas. And the nice thing about this is if I can get some paint on fairly quickly, while it's still wet, I can work some other colours into it, and that will help to get some softer edges. Sorry, this brush is losing a few hairs. So we want to try and preserve a few holes for the sky. I've missed a few, but
you haven't drawn the sky, painted the sky in, have you?
Well, I haven't, because I mean, you would normally do that.
Oh, you would?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
But I'm just thinking I'll just keep this as a little sketch, just a sketch of a tree, rather than the whole painting. Yeah. It's me practicing to see if I can get better at painting trees, which I need to do, really. I could do it. I was going to do that yesterday, but I ended up just painting a little cafe scene.
Much nicer.
Well, there was trees out the window. It's just over there. So there's a group of painters called the Wapping Group that paints throughout the, well, pretty much throughout the year actually, up in London. And I've applied to join them, and I got accepted as candidate yesterday. So it means I'm going to paint with them for the year, and they'll see if they want me. So yesterday I had to take my paintings up. I had to take 6 paintings up, frame paintings, and 2 of them are over there. And we had to sort of put them out, and 4 of us applied, and all 4 of us got to be candidates, which was really good. I knew the others pretty well anyway, so that was really nice. So so the coming year, come April, you know, I'll be able to go out, you know, pretty much everywhere they go and explore lots of London and
Are they a
south.
bit elite then?
Are they?
Elite.
Well, there's some really good painters amongst them, definitely. Yeah. I mean, some are, you know, some are sort of, I wouldn't say not so good, but they are, yeah, they're quite picky about who they have, to be honest. Yeah.
Hasn't the Wapping Group been going about since the 30s?
No, 1946.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so
So
it's
it's
very,
prestigious.
like the oldest established painting group in, or plein air painting group in Britain. Yeah. So they started. I think it was just slightly after the war they started. Yeah, I think it was. So my idea was to cut this in wet and wet, but it's already starting to dry because I'm talking too much.
Sorry.
That's my fault. I shouldn't distract myself. So yeah, basically sort of going in with the darker colours now. But I like this look where you've got some dark and then it melts in a little bit. The thing with the darker colours is you don't want them too watery. You want this first layer to be a bit wetter, then it needs to be drier. And what can go, it just wants to be slightly damp actually. The other thing about your watercolours is keep a slight angle, perhaps something a little bit like that. This is far too vertical, but so you can see what I'm doing. But just a little bit of an angle. So just prop it up under a couple of books or paint box or something like that. And that'll help the paint just gradually run down. But one thing I do see pretty constantly is students painting far too dry. I've heard one expression, it's like pushing puddles around. You just need to make these puddles in the paint box and then push them around. Have plenty of paint mixed. I do definitely recommend the tube paints over and above the pans, just because it's so much easier to get a strong, rich colour. And the pans do really solidify over time and become very, very hard to get the paint out. So they're very good quality ones. You probably would still do that.
Sorry, Paul, I missed how you got the green. What did you mix?
I mixed. Actually, I used a green that was here and mixed some other colour with it. Mixed it with the yellow. Yeah, if you're using green like this nice strong green here, probably a little bit of brown with it or a bit of red. They're a bit too bright for me as they come out, so something like that. And then, you know, that's still dark and still slightly damp, so I can go even darker there, which is quite nice. I'll get a variety of, in a way, it might be easier to maybe just paint a little section first before you do a whole tree.
To keep it all wet.
Yeah, work it while it's still wet, see how it can work. Yeah, with watercolours, just don't take too much on at a time. And then things like the branches and the tree trunks, I think I've actually got a lot of brown there. I should have got some more out. I'll mix that and a little bit of blue. Just want a dark tone. So with this, so I've got a slightly smaller brush now, but it's not tiny. That'll still hold plenty of paint. You can then sort of paint. I mean, you could wait for it to dry. You might want some slightly softened edges for some branches. Or wait for it to dry. This section here is dry, so I can kind of work that in. But I tend to get some of the, that's a bit clunky. Some of the, foliage. Get most of the foliage in first, I would suggest. I wouldn't suggest sort of doing a framework and then adding foliage, because it can look quite awkward. It's pretty much the opposite of what I've been teaching with oil paints for the last month or so. So it's like a radical rethink, just get your head into a totally different gear. So yeah, going things like the little twigs. And what I found works quite nicely is just a small, like a little rigger brush is nice. So I can go sort of thinner and narrower. And the other thing is, don't make them too dark. I think just slightly darken the leaves can create quite a nice effect. And actually, you know, if you want a few leaves, you tend to notice leaves just around these edges more than in the middle. So just a few dots and dashes, you know, spray up that a little bit, perhaps a few here and there. And that usually is enough to suggest a tree. And once you've got other areas suggested too, you're not going to latch onto every single leaf. It's just it's perhaps like if I've got a big lumpy bit there, I just want to break that up a tiny bit. And that's as much detail as I take. I kind of like the impression of detail without putting every detail in.
Is there not a method where you actually wet the paper and then paint into?
You could, yeah, you can do. Some artists do.
That's the way that I was taught.
To wet everything. Yeah. Who is that? Susan? Yeah, she would wet everything, would she? Yeah. I know. Yeah, some people do. And Pauline, when she taught me flower painting, I did a session with Pauline once, and she did. Yeah, kind of wet the whole area. The thing is, you're going to get very soft edges, and you might that might suit what you want.
Depending what
you're
painting.
Yeah, it is really. I'd say it's something you can do, and you need to just choose whether it suits the subject. Sort of misty trees in the distance, something like that. Yeah, that could.
Because it bleeds into.
Yeah, it will bleed in. Yeah, so it could be like you have a misty sky and then some trees in the distance. Sometimes when I'm driving, you know, here, and you see Hadley in the distance, it's all a bit misty and hazy. Yeah, that would work really nicely.
Rush hour while you're driving.
Yeah. I'm itching to. Yeah. Yeah, so that could be good, and then you could go sort of stronger, darker colours into that. Yeah, they're all. It's just like a vocabulary of painting techniques. You can then something like that, and then you could let that dry, and then maybe do some wet over dry. Then you know, for some sharper details.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I mean, you could do a winter. The other thing I was going to talk about was winter trees. So that's they were examples. This I find a lot more tricky because you rather needed, I think, a more textured paper. And this has got a bit of texture, but it's more of a medium texture, and it's really like a dry brush approach. I'll just do a little bit so you can get a grey going. This is probably going to be far too dark, but it's sort of like, you know, that sort of thing. Just try and give the impression of, that's a bit too dark really, but just to try and pick up the texture of the paper and give the impression that's too heavy. Just give the impression of sort of twigs in the distance, and then you could then do finer, maybe a few finer branches, or twigs and branches, and work your way back down for a winter tree approach. So that's another, you know, technique in your repertoire. I fancy getting a piece of textured, like thicker, rough textured paper just to see if I can improve on that. I've been, again, trying to do a couple of demos that I'm practicing that yesterday from cafe window, looking at the cafe window. But it wasn't that successful really. It needs something else, more textured paper. Okay. Great.
Paul, would you be doing sort of figurative painting and building as well?
Yeah, what with watercolours?
Yeah,
I can do. Yeah. I will keep it really simple, like maybe like shades or something like that. Yeah. That's a good one.